Well, we were talking about the early signing day and all of the madness that goes into the world of recruiting anyway. And I thought to myself, you've made a reputation for bringing people on who know much more about things than you do to better explain it than you can. So that's why this young man is here. Duane Vaughn is the recruiting coordinator for Furman, and one of only two holdovers from the old staff that Clay Hendricks kept around here when he came in last year and hired his new staff. And I think that worked out pretty well for young Duane Vaughn. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just anxiously looking forward to signing day on Wednesday. Excited to finally kind of be able to announce all the guys that we're going to bring in kind of on the first part of our 2018 recruiting class. So, and then just kind of finally getting a chance to kind of do some end of the season wrap up yesterday and today, because as soon as our last game versus Wofford finished, I think we were on the road 2 days later and have kind of been on the road these past 2 weeks.
And it was kind of ironic. At the end of last week, you had just come back in, and you were the only one basically who was in the office. Everybody else was still out doing what they do. Of course, this week I think is a dead period, right?
Correct.
So, and I'll remind our fans that as we talk about the recruiting and the signing day and the process, obviously we can't mention any names until those letters come in tomorrow and are actually signed and in-house. So just remember that. I always like to qualify that for people who may not know that's the case. I'm just curious from the coaching standpoint how this early signing period, first ever for football, how this early signing period has changed, affected what you guys do, if any at all.
Sure. I think it hasn't changed us a ton. I'd say our timeline on, when we decide to offer a kid, when we decide to bring them on official visits. A lot of people choose to do official visits now in December, which we decided against just because, obviously, as we hoped and we were playing in the playoffs, so it's kind of hard to have an official visit when you're, at Burlington, North Carolina, or possibly, on the road. And then also we think what sells Furman is the people. And so these last 2 weekends, a lot of people are having official visits with no students on campus, no professors on campus, and we feel like the people are what really sell Furman. So a lot of the guys that are actually going to sign on Wednesday will actually do their official visit in January. But pretty much all of the guys that will be signing have already been here on an unofficial visit. So they've been around our players, they've been around our coaching staff, seen campus, and kind of got all their questions already answered.
What's the overall view of this coaching staff? I mean, I'll ask you your individual opinion, but in total, because you listen to the debate at the FBS level, the Power 5 guys, and there's some coaches who like the early signing period. There's some coaches who don't like the early signing period. What's the kind of the vibe inside the Furman office about this new signing period?
Sure. I think we all like it just because – we've had, roughly 9 or 10 guys that for a while now, they know where they want to come to college, where they want to play football at. We know that they're our type of guys and that we want them. So, why wait? Instead of having to draw this thing all the way out till February 7th, we can go ahead and make it official tomorrow. It just allows us, to kind of have clarity come Wednesday and not have to keep holding our breath, with some bigger schools potentially coming in on guys later on in January. So it just really clears it up for us. And then after Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll be able to kind of sit down as a staff, receive all our NLIs, and then kind of know, okay, we've got these 4 to 5 spots left, and we can really focus all our attention on those guys come January.
The other thing it does, and I was talking about this before the break, right before you came in, for a school like Furman, the size of Furman, who doesn't have a budget that goes to infinity, the more guys you can lock up in the early signing period, that's less money you have to spend between tomorrow and February the 7th, babysitting some guys who have committed to you, who you hope are going to hold true to that commitment.
Right. And that's absolutely something that's going to be huge for us. And, and in addition to that, I think while recruiting is one of the most important things of, college football and college athletics, also that player development. And, as these recruiting rules have changed over the years, with satellite camps and different stuff, it's forced college coaches to be off campus more than they have in the past, so you're not around your players as much. And so something I know we're excited about is the month of January, because we're not dealing with 17 or 18 guys we're trying to sign in February 7th. Now we're going to be here in January with our guys in winter workouts, doing mat drills with them, opposed to in the past, basically the whole month of January, you were gone Monday through Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're doing official visits and you're right back on the road. So, I mean, you look up and it's February 7th or 8th, and you've seen your guys once or twice.
Yeah. Now, I want you to qualify something. You're not actually going to be doing the mat drills with the players.
That's correct.
Okay.
Those days are past. Those days are definitely past.
Because if you and some of the other coaches are going to do that, I was going to bring the video camera down. We were going to have some fun with that on the show. This is Duane Vaughn. He's the recruiting coordinator, defensive coach here at Furman on Clay Hendricks' staff. And we're talking about the early signing period that starts tomorrow. And we always say signing day, but technically it's a signing period.
Correct. So this signing period is a 72-hour signing period that starts 7 a.m. on Wednesday, December 20th, and runs through all the way through Friday. And like Dan was saying, that most of the guys will send those things in, the NLIs, first thing on Wednesday morning. Obviously, we'll be up bright and early, 7 a.m., sitting by the fax machine, which I think that's the only
I was just going to go there.
I think that's college athletics, I think, are the one organization that's still keeping fax machines in use.
You know, they do have the ability now to scan and email things. Well, do you get a few of those?
We do. Last signing day, I think we had the most. I think it was probably about 50-50. And it's always funny every year, you know, that they'll enter one number wrong and the NLI ends up over in the physics department or something, and we have a physics professor bringing it over to us. You know, we're trying to get it tracked down as paranoid college coaches, making sure that all the guys that were planning on signing with us, we in fact did.
Yeah, I mean, because you guys wouldn't lose any sleep over anything like that, would you?
No.
If everything goes well, what is the intended size of this class? And if everything goes well tomorrow, what percentage of that class will go ahead and sign early?
Sure. You know, I think we're right around that 17 range in terms of a total class. And, you know, which that's about what we hope it to be, maybe a little smaller each year, because just, you know, the type of guy we're looking for, you know, at Furman is pretty special. You know, it's, when you combine the academics, the high-level football player, you know, the person who gets the big picture. And I'd say tomorrow, right around that 10 to 11 number. So that'll, you know, leave a couple more, you know, 4 to 5 for us to kind of close out in January.
You know, it's interesting. I was talking about this as well, going off of just what you were talking about there with the academics and everything else that goes into Furman here. I mean, the field of kids you're choosing from is significantly narrowed right from the very beginning. So I don't know if it makes it quote unquote easy, but I think maybe it's a little easier because you're not trying to deal with an extremely wide field of athletes who fit what it takes to be a Furman student.
Yeah, you know, I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. You know, I think that's definitely something that it makes it very easy in the process for us to kind of, we know what our cutoff is, both, you know, athletically and academically, and character and everything kind of checks out. But at the same time, you know, it definitely makes it a challenge, and I think that's why we like the early signing day period, because, you know, there are only so many guys that God has blessed with, you know, the size we need, the speed, athleticism, and, you know, to couple that with being a great academic student. You know, and the good thing for us is, you know, this Southeast region is so fertile with great football players. You know, we pride ourselves on, you know, kind of a 5 or 6 hour radius. You know, not saying we won't go up to the Northeast or, you know, across the Mississippi or up, you know, to the Midwest where Coach Lamondola is from, Ohio, obviously where you're from. But, you know, for the most part, I'd say probably over 90% of our roster is within a 6 hour radius. Yeah. And the cool thing about that, you know, if you draw a 6 hour, you know, radius, you're going to hit all the Carolinas. You're going to hit Nashville, Birmingham, Jacksonville, all of Georgia. You know,
fair amount of football players there.
Yep. So in some pretty high level football, you know, with a lot of guys signing out of those states.
Ken asked a pretty intriguing question here on our Facebook Live section, and if you have some questions for Coach Vaughn, you can leave them in the comments section on Facebook Live, or you can tweet them to me at Dan Scott Show. But he says he wonders if this might not open more prospects earlier for Furman or other schools at this level, meaning that if more high-profile athletes sign earlier, do others see the writing on the wall at the FBS level and decide to go ahead and move in the FCS direction?
Yeah, I think that's something that's definitely going to, play a role. Cause like you're saying, now there's kind of two distinct signing, days. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in all our guys that signed tomorrow in January on an official visit with those 5 to 7 guys that are unsigned. And so that's what we're going to tell them once they've signed, even though they're not physically here on campus yet taking classes, they're part of the team. So they kind of turn into some of our biggest advocates and biggest recruiters. Mm-hmm. And so now it allows guys making that decision in January to kind of not only evaluate us as a staff, a school, but also, hey, here's the guys they've already signed. They're putting together a very special class.
This is Duane Vaughn as we continue to talk about the early signing day and just Furman recruiting overall heading into tomorrow's early signing period that starts at 7 a.m. Explain to folks the duties of a recruiting coordinator at a school like Furman. What's your job like besides, oh, by the way, coaching position and the weekly and game day duties during the season?
Sure. It starts obviously, myself and Coach Hendricks kind of sitting down and, starts with him just kind of what exactly, laying out our strategy, from figuring out the scholarship budget and making sure we sign, right up to the limit, which is 63 scholarships, which is the maximum allowed at the FCS level. So we have 63 scholarships. We can split up to 85 guys. So then it kind of setting up a system to evaluate guys. And then once we evaluate them and deem them worthy of an offer, then we're going to kind of go through the recruiting process. So second step, once you've evaluated them and decided if they're what you want, then it, becomes a part of, getting in touch with them, developing that relationship, which is very important, getting them on campus, getting all their questions answered and that's what's unique about this recruiting process is, it's not that I have any experience in the matter, but it's kind of like when you ask a girl to marry you, you kind of, some people do it right out of high school. Some people do it 30 or 40 and everywhere in between. But the thing I always tell kids in this recruiting process is, when you get that feeling of this is where I belong, I feel comfortable, I'm at home, and I don't need to go look anywhere else.
So you're still in the scouting phase when it comes to the whole relationship and marriage thing,
still
right?
in the evaluation, yeah,
or maybe probably still being evaluated. If truth were told,
no doubt,
that's usually how it works.
No doubt.
Well, what are the main areas of emphasis in this upcoming class? So where are you hoping to get the most help, or where do you need the most help?
I think defensive back is definitely been probably a big priority out of everything, and then offensively, I think because this is while Coach Hendricks arrived last year, I think about December 20th, and there was no early signing period. We were kind of just scrambling to get the best guys available that were still left out there last year. So it's been every guy we kind of talked to, especially on offense, is kind of, you guys are the first true class of this offensive staff, fitting exactly the type of guys it is we want for the offensive system we run.
So basically you're taking everybody else that you had here already and what you could get in that short period of time and adapting them to the system, as opposed to being able to in effect spend a year recruiting somebody who fits your system.
Yes. And last year when Coach Hendricks came in, we had to make decisions on guys, and obviously he could watch the film from, the previous year, the 2016 year, but, we basically signed a class of guys before Coach Hendricks and everybody on the new staff had even gone through a winter workout with the guys on campus. So it was hard to he had to lean on myself and Coach Bratton very heavily to kind of, be open and honest about what exactly we felt like we, were deficient at, what we, had enough help at. And then, like I said, just try to get out there and sign the best guys, shore up some positions. And then after signing day, found out what we had currently on the roster. So this year just been a lot more intentional with, going through a season, an off season, a spring practice, fall camp, and obviously a great football year. And so just feel like we know exactly what it is our needs are and how to fill all those holes.
The year that this team had the stark turnaround with the new staff and Clay at the top, has that opened any additional doors as far as players that you're going after, you're hoping to sign, or the guys that you had already zeroed in on anyway? And I guess what I'm saying is, does the winning, at least in this small sample size, did this winning season matter at all?
Absolutely. Obviously, Coach Hendrick says it best, recruiting for Furman, it's kind of like being a Nike salesperson. You've got a great product to offer. And, obviously you want to talk about tradition, third all-time most playoff appearances, one of 2 private schools to win a national championship. I think we're rated 96th on Forbes top 100 college and university across the country.
Not bad.
But on top of that, kids nowadays, everything happens at, 5 inches from their face, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope. And, I was a history major, and I found real quickly when I was student teaching, kids aren't very fired up about history. Kids don't care what happened 20 and 30, 40 years ago. They want to know what's happened now. And I feel like that was really kind of the missing piece here at being the recruiting coordinator the previous 2 years on the old staff was, you could sell, talk about all that stuff, but then the biggest question parents and recruits would ask you, well, what was your record this year? What was your record the previous year? And the big thing about this year, I think that's been so neat to really sell, that I've been, I know selling the heck out of to guys is just our staff. Because if that doesn't speak to player development, going from, 3-8 to a 7-4 regular season where all your all your losses are to either an FBS school or teams that made the 1AA playoffs. So that, and I tell guys all the time, in college football, there's not a waiver wire, and we're not a school that's going to go out and get 10, 15, 20 transfers from JUCOs or 1As. So
no free agents.
Exactly. So, I think that just, really speaks highly about the staff, how well they were able to develop guys, put guys in good positions, and then develop them throughout the course of the year. And I think if you followed our season, you would say, from game 1 to game 11 in the regular season, how fun it was to watch guys really, get better and better and better each week and play your best football at the end of the year.
Before we let you go, if you follow Furman's football page on Twitter, undoubtedly you see what I've seen, and that is from being on the road last week, a lot of coaches in a lot of homes taking a lot of pictures with a lot of prospective athletes. The social media aspect of this thing you mentioned a moment ago, things happening 5 inches from their face, has really been a game changer in the last few years. Everybody wants to announce, I'm blessed to receive my 27th offer from a school that I'll never attend, but thank you very much, and all of this thing. How social media changed what you guys are doing?
I think it's, like you said, especially at a school like Furman, I talk all the time with our coaches just about, we creating our own noise, and what a great platform we have, and obviously have a, awesome fan base that, digest it and also retweets it and gets it out there to their friends and family. And we just, get so much exposure, so that's been great. And one of the things that I really love about this staff, from Coach Hendricks, Coach Quarles, all the way down to myself and some of the younger guys, I mean, top to bottom, I think we're probably one of the most active, complete staffs on social media, which, that's important to kids, because you've got to be able to, relate to them and be able to get in touch with them, whether it's, playing 8-ball, playing pool with them through text messages or, Snapchat or whatever. I mean, there's so many creative ways to get, to use it as a tool, because nowadays kids don't really like talking on the phone. Kids don't think as much about a handwritten letter opposed to getting a, cool Photoshop edit, and that just goes so much farther. So, and, that's been something that, being relatively young, very, familiar with technology, I think I've been able to bring to the table to kind of help us is, being able to relate to the kids and kind of cater to what it is they like.
So all very interesting how things have changed, and this is another one of the reasons why I don't pay attention to recruiting. I leave it to guys like to do the job, because, and I said this earlier, it's long been my stance. You have the recruiting services that rate the kids and they rate the classes and all this, and I get it. I do. It's an industry. I just have this novel approach, Duane, that you can't really judge a recruiting class or judge a player until they've been in the school for 4 or 5 years. Absolutely. As opposed. But the flip side of it is, people like you, people like Coach Hendricks and the entire staff, you're also paid to be talent evaluators.
Sure.
So, I mean, there is a little bit to both sides of the coin.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think a lot of times, their staffs out there, they get caught up in that, we signed this many 3-stars or that. But, like I said, we're just big on not only on top of being a good player, but making sure those intangibles check out. Because when you only get 63 scholarships at our level, it's important to make sure, you're not, quote unquote, missing on a guy that's going to come here and, use a scholarship and not play for those 4 to 5 years, where obviously you signed 63, you've only got 11 starters on offense, 11 on defense, but you want to make sure that you've developed quality depth and you've got guys that are, working while they're waiting. They may be back, for example, Jamar Lincoln, came in, redshirted this year. Obviously PJ had a great year, and, now him coming off a redshirt year, he helped us a ton on scout team. I think back to the Western Carolina week. And, so just that player development at our level, I think, is just so key. And just like you said, you won't truly know until we kind of say, a kid's in our program a year or two before you kind of, know, because we're not going to sign the 5-star ready-made players that could probably go on, to the NFL straight out of high school, like the Clemsons of the world.
Last thing, I'm sure we can go ahead and announce this one because he's a young man who's been around here for a while. But maybe the biggest piece to this recruiting class coming back is a young man who has decided to come back for his redshirt senior season next year, right?
Yes. So the one, we don't have to wait on the NLI for tomorrow, but number 21, Keelan Dirks, will be back in the purple and white next year, which I think will have a lot of fans very excited. I know as a defensive staff, it has us very excited because, I think back to the Chattanooga game, actually was down there breaking it down a little bit ago, and, it's 41-17 with about 6-7 minutes to go, and we're just ripping off 5, 6, 7 yards of carry, and our guys are sitting on the sideline sipping on Gatorade, just kind of waiting for those final seconds to tick off the clock. That's a fun thing as a defensive coach, something I haven't been used to in a while around here. And I think the fans are used to kind of getting back to, that power run game, and it starts between the tackles and having a hoss of a running back. A lot of people kind of put him in the same mold as a Jerome Felton. Yeah,
it's been very interesting to watch kind of a little bit of a change in this young man, because it was no guarantee at season's beginning he was going to come back. I mean, let's face it, first 3 games of the year, even 4 games of the year, you even go to the Colgate game, he wasn't much of a factor, if any, in this offense. But I know it was a handful of carries at the end of the NC State game and in week 3 that people looked at and said, man, if we could just get this kid motivated.
Yeah.
And look what happened after that.
Yeah. And, I think, once again, that goes back to, our coaching staff, and it starts with Coach Sims, who played that exact same position, at Georgia Tech. I think he's actually technically our youngest coach on staff, and just, like I said, just the motivation and getting, every last drop out of, our players. And that's something, he's one that stands out, but I think you could go right down the list at all positions of guys that I've been around for the past 3 or 4 years. And, this year you just got so much more out of them that you knew they had in them. Maybe they didn't think they had it, or, you had to kind of get them going, or, but that's what's been really cool and rewarding to kind of see this thing through from remembering signing these guys out of high school and watching them, develop and not having the success they probably wanted as a team or even individual, and finally kind of reaping that reward this year.
Well, it was a heck of a season. There's no question about it. And now the only thing you have to do is be better next year. Because that's the way it works. There's there's no going back. It's like sales. You know, you did this much last year, so you always have to do more the next year. But it's been fun and looking to see what this next group of Paladins is going to look like. And I know that you've been working your rear end off, and as has the whole staff. And I'm very confident it's going to reap the rewards.
Yes, sir. So now we're very, very excited, like I said, to just keep the momentum going. You know, we talk about the flywheel model, that once you get it turned, and that's what we talked about it in season. You know, felt like we were right there, knocking on the door of those first 2 weeks. And I remember going up to Colgate, and it was like, guys, we just gotta, you don't know how close you are. That one more punch, that one more hit of the axe is going to burst through, and that was what was really cool to see. Yep. And just carry a lot of that momentum from the end of the year straight into recruiting. And like I said, there's lots of people I know, both players that we're recruiting out of high school, that are fired up about kind of what it is we're doing here, as well as alumni, fans, former players.
Sounds like the coaches are a little fired up about it too.
Oh yeah, I'm very fired up. Like I said, just enjoy. We got a great group of guys. Great. It's a pleasure to come to work every day. Whether it's December 19th, we've got our Christmas party tonight, and then we'll have our signing day, and then get out of here for about 2 weeks. Come back on January 4th. But just very, very, very excited about kind of what's going on here.
Excellent. Thank you, man.
No problem. Thank you.
That is Duane Vaughn, the recruiting coordinator here at Furman. Thank you for joining us on such short notice.